61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. But you already knew that, didn't you? Because you feel it. You log online and see a world that feels economically rigged against you. Housing prices are completely detached from reality. Inflation is eating away at wages. You're told by older generations to just save your pennies, but you know deep down that skipping a $5 coffee isn't going to buy you a $600,000 starter home. So you numb it. You doom scroll. You spend money on small digital dopamine hits because the big goals feel mathematically impossible. You're not lazy. You're not bad with money. You are simply playing a game where nobody handed you the rulebook. But what if I told you the way out isn't about working 80 hours a week or becoming a Wall Street executive? What if wealth isn't a lottery ticket, but a predictable, step-by-step psychological ladder? There are 5 definitive levels of financial freedom. Most of your generation is trapped in level 1. Today, we are going to break down the exact mathematical and psychological blueprint to reach level 5. Let's start climbing. Here is the thing. We are living in an era of unprecedented algorithmic pressure. Every app on your phone, every targeted ad, every influencer aesthetic is engineered by billionaires to separate you from your paycheck before it even hits your bank account. Gen Z is experiencing a unique financial crisis. You are inheriting an economy where the cost of surviving has skyrocketed, while the cultural pressure to look rich online has never been higher. It is a recipe for a generational wealth wipeout. You are not wrong to worry. You are not crazy for lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering if you will ever be able to afford a decent life without working until you die. The anxiety you feel is a totally rational response to an irrational system. But anxiety doesn't pay the rent. And complaining about the macroeconomic environment, no matter how justified, will not save you. The only way to survive is to build your own localized economy, a personal fortress. To do that, you have to understand exactly where you are on the map. Because if you don't know your current coordinates, no amount of hustle or side gigs will point you in the right direction. You have to identify the traps of the level you are currently in, so you can build the specific bridge to the next one. Let's diagnose your current reality. Level 1, the scarcity trap. You wake up, you check your banking app. You see a number that makes your chest tighten. You mentally calculate exactly how many days are left until your next direct deposit. You rely on buy now, pay later apps just to get basic necessities. You have a constant, underlying hum of dread in the back of your mind. This is where you start. And if we look at the data, it is where millions of people stay forever. But here is the deep dive reframe you need to hear. The true danger of level 1 is not just the lack of money. It is the cognitive load of scarcity. Psychological studies show that living in financial deficit literally drops your effective IQ by up to 13 points. When you are broke, your brain is functioning like a computer with 99% of its RAM consumed by background processes. You are constantly running a survival algorithm. Can I afford this gas? Will my car decline at the grocery store? If my tire pops, am I ruined? This bandwidth tax drains your energy. It is why after a long week of struggling, you end up ordering a $30 food delivery you can't afford. People judge you for it. They call it irresponsible. But it isn't irresponsibility. It is decision fatigue. Your brain is so exhausted from surviving that it demands immediate dopamine just to regulate itself. This is the hidden system. The economy relies on you staying in this exhausted state. Because an exhausted consumer is a profitable consumer. They don't negotiate. They don't invest. They just buy the instant relief they are sold. To escape level 1, you do not need a perfect 10-year investing strategy. You need a tourniquet. You have to violently reject the algorithmic pressure to consume. You delete the apps. You stop caring about looking successful. You realize that wearing the same clothes and staying in on a Friday night isn't a punishment. It is an act of war against the system trying to keep you poor. You build a $1,000 buffer. It sounds small, but that $1,000 isn't about the money. It is about buying back your RAM. It is the first time you can breathe without your chest hurting. That single breath is your ticket to level 2. Level 2, algorithmic solvency. You are no longer drowning, but you are still treading water. At this level, your income matches or slightly exceeds your expenses. You have a small emergency fund, maybe $2,000 or $3,000. You are current on your bills. The buy now, pay later balances are paid off and deleted forever. This time, you are not reacting to money. You are directing it. But here is where the psychology gets dangerous. When the immediate pain of being broke fades, complacency sets in. You feel a little bit of cash in your account, and the algorithms notice. They start serving you targeted ads for nicer cars, better clothes, luxury vacations. This is the phenomenon of lifestyle creep, but weaponized for Gen Z. Let's look at the deep psychology of this stage. I call it the consumption detox. In level 2, you have to understand that your desires are largely manufactured. You don't actually want a $40,000 car at 24 years old. You want the feeling of respect that you think the car will bring you. You want to signal to your peers that you are no longer in level 1. But the ultimate truth bomb is this. Trying to look wealthy is the fastest way to stay poor. To conquer level 2, you have to decouple your self-worth from your spending. You have to automate your financial defense. This means setting up systems where money is routed away from your checking account the second you get paid. You build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. If your survival expenses are $3,000 a month, you aggressively stash away $9,000 to $18,000. You don't do this to get rich. You do this to buy armor. Because when you have 6 months of living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account, something profound happens to your posture. You stop being afraid of your manager. You stop accepting disrespect at work. You realize you have a choice. You have achieved solvency. You have built the wall. Now, it is time to build the engine. Quick pause. If you're getting value out of this video so far, take 1 second to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. My goal with this channel is to help you build real wealth and avoid the financial traps that keep most people stuck. Let's get back to the video. Level 3. Temporal stability. This is the tipping point. This is where you cross the threshold from being a consumer to becoming an allocator. At this stage, you have zero toxic consumer debt. Your fund is fully loaded. And because you have kept your living expenses low, you suddenly have a massive gap between what you earn and what you spend. Maybe you are saving 15% or 20% of your income. What do you do with it? You buy time. Let's dive into the core philosophy of level 3, time decoupling. Most people fundamentally misunderstand what money is. They think money is paper used to buy things. Money is not paper. Money is stored time. When you work 40 hours a week, you are trading your life force for currency. Therefore, when you invest that currency, you are literally buying back your future hours. Let's do the math. If you invest $500 a month into a broad market index fund, assuming historical average returns of around 8% to 10%, that money begins to clone itself. At first, it feels painfully slow. You look at your account after a year and it's only made a few $100. But compounding is a backloaded mathematical miracle. Eventually, your money starts earning more money than you do. At level 3, your focus shifts entirely to the temporal ROI, the return on investment of your time. You begin to value an hour of your Tuesday afternoon more than a designer jacket. You realize that keeping your expenses at $40,000 a year instead of inflating them to $60,000 means you require significantly less capital to buy your freedom. You are no longer playing the status game. You are playing the freedom game. This level requires extreme patience. It is boring, but it is the beautiful, quiet boredom of a foundation curing. You are laying the bricks of your own independence. You are consistently investing, consistently learning, and letting the undefeated math of the market do the heavy lifting. You are stable, but soon you will be untouchable. Level 4, asymmetric security. You wake up and for the first time in your life, work is a choice, not a mandate. This age where your investments have reached a critical mass. You haven't quite hit full retirement wealth, but you have achieved what we call velocity coasting. You have accumulated enough capital, perhaps $100,000, $300,000 or more in your 20s or 30s, that even if you never invested another dime, compounding would carry that portfolio into millions by the time you hit traditional retirement age. Let's break down the hidden mechanism here, the leverage threshold. At level 4, you possess asymmetric security. This means the power dynamic between you and the rest of the world has completely flipped. If your boss yells at you, you can quit on the spot. If you want to take a lower paying job that fulfills your soul, you can take it without a second thought. You have leveraged your past discipline to completely insulate your present reality. Let's look at the ultimate milestone in this stage. It is widely known as the 4% rule. Financial researchers discovered if you save 25 times your annual expenses and invested in a diversified portfolio, you've hit the crossover point. Historically, this allows you to withdraw 4% of your portfolio every year, adjusted for inflation, and have it last at least 30 years. even through the worst economic crashes in history. And the best part, in most market conditions, your wealth actually continues to grow, potentially funding your lifestyle forever. If your life costs $40,000 a year, which is roughly $3,333 a month, your magic number is $1 million. When your portfolio hits that 25x multiplier, your capital generates enough yield to replace your labor entirely. Honestly, the psychological shift here is staggering. You have transitioned from a laborer to a capital allocator. You no longer fear the economy. You don't panic when the stock market dips because you know that a market crash is just a fire sale on assets. You have built an invisible, unbreakable shield around yourself and your family. You don't need to flaunt it. In fact, most people at this level drive older cars and wear plain clothes. They are the hidden millionaires living right next door. They don't look rich because they traded the appearance of wealth for the reality of freedom. Level 5. Existential Autonomy. This is the pinnacle, the summit, the stage that less than 1% of the population will ever experience. At this level, you don't just have 25 times your expenses. You have 40, 50, maybe 100 times what you need to survive. The cash flow from your assets produces a waterfall of income that you couldn't spend if you tried. But the money is no longer the point. Let's analyze the deep philosophy of post-economic identity. When survival is permanently guaranteed, what happens to human ambition? For your entire life, your identity has been tied to your economic output. You were a student, then an employee, then an investor. Your goals were defined by numbers. But at level 5, money loses its emotional weight entirely. It becomes like oxygen. It is always there, abundant and invisible, and you never have to think about it again. This is where true autonomy begins. You start thinking in decades, not days. You think in generations. The people who reach this level and stay happy are the ones who shift their focus from selfish accumulation to systemic impact. They build charities. They fund their family's education. They plant trees under whose shade they do not expect to sit. You realize that wealth was never a scoreboard. It was simply a tool to remove friction from your life so you could discover who you actually are. You wake up on a Tuesday. Your calendar is completely blank. No alarms. No meetings you don't want to attend. No forced interactions with toxic people. You own your hours entirely. You spend the morning reading. You spend the afternoon mentoring a young entrepreneur. You pay for a stranger's groceries just to see them smile. You don't have a private jet and you don't care. You have something infinitely more valuable. You have absolute, uncompromising sovereignty over your own existence. This is existential autonomy, and it is waiting for you at the end of the math. So, look at the map. Where are you right now? Are you trapped in the algorithmic scarcity of level 1, dodging calls from creditors and hoping a side hustle saves you? Are you in level 2, solvent but one bad medical bill away from falling back down? Or are you quietly building your fortress in level 3? Wherever you are, I need you to understand something critical. The gap between level 1 and level 5 feels impossibly vast. It feels like looking up from the bottom of an ocean. But it isn't magic. It is just math, and the math is undefeated. The hardest part isn't the investing. The hardest part is the very first decision. The moment you sit alone in your room, look at your negative bank balance, and finally say, enough. The moment you realize that nobody is coming to save you, not the government, not your employer, not a viral lottery ticket. You have to be your own savior. You start today, you track every single dollar leaving your account. You cancel the subscriptions feeding the algorithms. You sell the things you bought to impress people you don't even like. You embrace the boredom of consistency. Because the pain of discipline today is nothing compared to the pain of regret in 30 years. You are capable of climbing this ladder. Gen Z has been handed a broken economic system, yes, but you also have access to more asymmetric knowledge, more free educational leverage, and more digital tools than any generation in human history. You can use the internet to doom scroll, or you can use it to build an escape velocity. The choice is yours. Right now, your future self is watching you through the lens of time, begging you to make the hard choice today so they can live in peace tomorrow. Do not let them down. But this breakdown shifted your perspective. If you are ready to stop playing the status game and start playing the freedom game, hit the like button and subscribe. This channel isn't here to sell you a fantasy. We are here to decode the math of reality. We are building a community of quiet, relentless architects. We don't flex, we don't panic, we just build. Welcome to the climb. I'll see you in the next one.